It's November 17th, 1930. Mickey Mouse, star of Steamboat Willie, takes a break from his travels to celebrate his birthday by picking out a new home site in Anaheim, California, far from the hustle and bustle of Hollywood. The inked Imagineer's dreams begin to take shape, and Mickey's ToonTown slowly rises from the orange groves as his house nears completion in the new secret suburb. Word gets out to other animated actors, and Mickey's ToonTown starts to draw the top of the tune. Walt Disney, Mickey's pen pal and frequent ToonTown visitor, unveils plans for a big amusement park adjacent to the Toon Secret City at Mickey's request. Walt promises to keep the entrance to Toontown hidden from non-Toon guests to his new Disneyland. Disneyland is a short commute for the Toons, living next door, side by side Disneyland and Mickey's ToonTown, sharing the fun but keeping the secret. Alright, that's the history of Toontown according to Walt Disney Imagineering. Now let me tell you the true story of 30 years of good, bad, and indifferent, and 191 things you may not know about the history of Toontown. In the mid-1980s, Roy E. Disney, Walt's nephew, brought in Michael Eisner and Frank Wells to lead the Walt Disney Company. Eisner and Wells had big plans for Disney, including new hotels, attractions, and a new park, and a massive expansion at Disneyland. Although not all of their ambitious plans came to fruition, one project that was accomplished during the mostly failed Disney decade was Mickey's ToonTown inside of Disneyland. The origins of Mickey's ToonTown can be traced back to 1988 with the opening of Magic Kingdom's first new land in nearly 2 decades, Mickey's Birthday Land. The premise of the land was that Minnie Mouse was throwing Mickey a surprise party, and visitors could tour his house and even take a photo with him in his dressing room. The land was quickly put together as a temporary solution to the many complaints about a lacking designated place to meet the iconic character. However, it turned out to be more popular than Disney had anticipated. Disneyland was in the midst of plans for a major expansion, which would feature a new land dedicated to Mickey Mouse and his friends. Toontown would be the first new land open in Disneyland since 1972's Bear Country, now known as Critter Country. Little did theme park fans realize at the time, but Mickey's ToonTown at Disneyland would represent the future of not only Disney Parks themed lands, but also a template that other theme parks would use. In 1992, the construction of Mickey's ToonTown began on a former maintenance lot located behind It's a Small World. This marked the first time that a Disneyland expansion was built entirely outside of the original perimeter of the amusement park, with an estimated cost of $100 million. The removal of the Motorboat Cruise, Fantasyland Utopia, and Mission to Mars attractions allowed the park to allocate more resources toward the child-friendly Toontown area. Toontown's architecture was heavily inspired by the cartoon world of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, featuring bent and twisted cartoon-style buildings with no straight edges to be found. Disney paid great attention to the detail in creating Toontown, ensuring that each cartoon building lacked regular doors to give it a cartoon appearance. To bring the vision to life, Disney even brought in a specialist plaster sculptor from Europe to create models for each of the houses. Toontown's overall appearance is actually more reminiscent of some of the cartoons produced by rival studio Fleischer in the early 1930s, rather than Disney's Silly Symphonies, which had a more subdued color scheme and elegant style. The main attraction in Mickey's ToonTown was Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, which received widespread acclaim. The attraction was surrounded by jokes and gags, buttons and levers, all at the perfect height for kids to push and pull on. A kid's dream come true. It was a place where there were no signs that said, "Do not touch." The idea for Roger Rabbit was created by combining several proposed attractions into one, as Disney had flirted with doing a separate Roger Rabbit land at its various parks. While there are some nods to specific events in Roger Rabbit, there are no references to the non-Disney characters that played a significant role inside the film. Visitors could take a bouncing ride on the Jolly Trolley, a working trolley car that offered a ride through Toontown from the business village to the residential side. And on the other side of Toontown is where Mickey Mouse and all of his friends reside, and their houses have become attractions for visitors, where kids could explore Chip 'n Dale's Tree House, a tree fort featuring a slide and a ball pit, or Donald Duck's boat, featuring a slide, spiral staircase, rope climb, and other fun activities. Goofy's Bounce House was a major hit for younger guests. However, the bounce house had a height restriction to 52 inches, which could be disappointing for taller visitors. But the number one house on the street in Toontown was the opportunity of meeting Mickey Mouse at his own home. Unlike the Magic Kingdom, Visitors could explore the Mouse's house and interact with decorations and set pieces. They could also go next door and visit Minnie Mouse's house, which was just as fabulous and interactive. Toon Park provided a playground for kids to enjoy while their parents took a breather, and they could even meet some of their favorite characters. For little thrill seekers, there was Gadget's Go Coaster, a roller coaster for both kids and adults. The immersive and interactive land was filled with many other activities designed to engage visitors of all ages. Toontown received a mixed reception overall, with kids loving all the fun activities, but many adults feeling like it didn't quite live up to their expectations.
Disneyland in all its wonder has come to you.
Disneyland was very excited about its first new land in over 20 years and set up a major media tour unlike anything you would see today. A Rose Bowl opening float in full performance, a live concert recorded inside of Toontown featuring Craig and Company, an afternoon TV show called ToonTown Kids, a collection of classic Disney animated shorts presented by two kids hanging out inside of Disneyland's Toontown, and in 1992, Disneyland and Kodak launched a massive media tour, creating a mobile version of Toontown that they were able to take across the country, hoping to not only convince folks at the mall to visit the real Toontown inside of Disneyland in California, but also to convince local media outlets to cover the mall appearances to reach even more viewers and readers that didn't make it out to their local mall. The tour traveled 14,000 miles across 37 states, hitting shopping malls in 24 major markets with giant set pieces that replicated Disneyland's Toontown, but at your local mall. Conveniently for co-sponsor Kodak, these interactive three-dimensional building facades begged to be photographed, what would be referred to today as an Instagram moment. The centerpiece of the tour was an 18-minute stage show at a replicated version of City Hall featuring Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Roger Rabbit that drew over 3 million viewers. And just like back in Disneyland, visitors could meet Mickey Mouse in his own house all day long. Delta Airlines and Walt Disney Travel Company representatives were available to talk directly with consumers about booking vacations to Disneyland. And mall events featured merchandise giveaways and character appearances. Radio stations promoted the appearance with cassette tape giveaways. And television stations all across the country helped spread the word that Disneyland had opened its first new land in 20 years. Overall, the combination of advertising, promotions, and publicity generated millions of dollars in exposure for both Disneyland and Kodak. By the 2000s, there had been a significant amount of abandonment that had taken place. Anyone who had visited Toontown in the early 90s would have been shocked by just how much had been abandoned. The iconic Jolly Trolley was gone, having faced constant maintenance issues, including the occasional derailment of the second trolley car. To solve that problem, in 1994, the second trolley car was removed entirely, and by 2003, the Jolly Trolley was shut down for good, becoming a stationary photo op. Goofy's Bounce House was also closed due to safety concerns, becoming a lackluster playhouse with very little to play with. Even Chip 'n Dale's Treehouse was deemed too dangerous for children, with the slide removed and the ball pit blocked off due to hygiene concerns. Donald's Boat saw the removal of the slide and children's entrance to the upper deck due to safety concerns, and even the horn from the tugboat was turned off, allegedly due to complaints about the noise. Toon Park was gutted and replaced with more benches due to, you guessed it, more safety concerns, and many other features around the once interactive land became broken and still. Lawyers had taken the life out of Toontown, and with no movement or kinetic energy to be found, Mickey's Toontown became an often ignored corner of the park, only getting named when related to bad headlines. In September 2000, Brandon Zucker and his family decided to ride Roger Rabbit Cartoon Spin at the end of a long day at Disneyland. Tragically, Brandon fell out of the taxicab and was pinned under the car. He suffered major internal injuries, cardiac arrest, and brain damage. Although he survived, he spent 8 years in and out of hospitals and died in his mother's arms at the young age of 13. The state of California ruled the Disneyland staff failed to properly load Brandon onto the ride by not placing the smallest passenger away from the door, and ordered substantial safety adjustments to the attraction to ensure this type of tragedy would never take place again. And in July of 2019, a viral video showed a violent family fight at Disneyland's Toontown. Avery Robinson committed corporal injury on a spouse and 13 other misdemeanor counts, including child abuse and endangerment. The incident shocked many as the idea of violence occurring in a Disney park seemed impossible. Although violence may have occurred in the past, it wasn't instantly shared on social media to millions of viewers within 24 hours. Unfortunately, Toontown had become the backdrop for the end of innocence as the Disney theme parks entered the social media age, where every distasteful occurrence would be filmed, documented, and shared for the world to see. Unfortunately, this sad occurrence had become what most folks would associate with Toontown in this downbeat chapter in the history of this once beloved brand new land that Disney was so optimistic about. As Toontown had settled into a moment of abandonment, often overlooked and forgotten, it holds a significant place in the timeline of Disney parks. It was the first modern expansion land that inspired the layout of nearly every theme land that Disney and others would build in the 2000s. It marked the beginning of concept lands, where one intellectual property was centralized and everything inside the land was themed around it. Toontown was also the beginning of having a dedicated entry point that isolated the land from the rest of Disneyland, creating its own world with one major ride offset by smaller attractions, restaurants, and shopping contained in its own village. This same modern expansion style can be seen in theme parks like Wizarding World of Harry Potter, or next door at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and the new Super Nintendo World in Hollywood. Even though Toontown had been ignored for quite some time, it had created an echo inside the world of theme park design that is still being listened to today. After 25 plus years, Mickey's Toontown had revolutionized the theme park industry by showcasing a new approach to designing single, intellectual property-driven lands. It was finally announced that a major attraction would be built, putting life back into the land for decades to come. Disney had always been protective of anything related to Mickey Mouse. Despite being the star of several shorts over 90 years, the company has been reluctant to give the icon his own feature films or attractions, fearing negative judgment that may result from a bad movie or a poorly received theme park attraction. It was evident that Disney had immense confidence in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway as the ideal embodiment of their most valuable intellectual property and icon for the brand. In April of 2019, it was announced that a second version of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway would be built inside of Toontown at Disneyland, providing a major attraction for generations to come. And this would revitalize the land and generate a renewed interest in the often forgotten Toontown. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway had received glowing reviews upon its opening on March 4th, 2020 at Disney's Hollywood Studios. But just a few days after the grand opening, Disneyland closed for 2 weeks to curb the spread of COVID-19. And after a long 440 days, Disneyland would finally reopen on April 30th, 2021. During the 400-plus day closure, construction crews were able to work on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway inside of Toontown. However, the opening date for 2022 was forced to be pushed back a year. Upon reopening after the COVID-19 closures, Toontown was in its most broken down state ever. Construction noises were evident all throughout the land, making it unusual to see so much construction occurring while the parks were open. But hey, it's all for the sake of progress, right? And once Toontown has its new premier attraction, it will all be worth it. And then, during the cut-back Bob Chapek years of downscaling and downsizing, something unexpected happened.
The Disneyland Resort. You all know one of my favorites. For us, a critical part of connecting people is creating welcoming places for our guests. I shared some news about our plans for Mickey's Toontown Park at Disneyland Park. What we're doing is we're creating some all-new experiences so that families with young children have more opportunities to play together in the park. Now, our Imagineers are hard at work creating a place that features new experiences, an open, grassy spaces for everyone to unplug.
6 months into the reopening of Disneyland, Josh D'Amaro, chairman of Disney Parks Experiences and Products, made a surprising announcement. Disneyland fans would not only be getting a new premier attraction, but also a new version of the Toontown land. Post-pandemic Disney had made a promise to create a more inclusive version of Toontown, showing a strong commitment to ensuring that the brand resonates with all guests and their diverse needs. Reshaping the almost 30-year-old Toontown and removing outdated and forgotten elements to better align with the current Disney brand was a massive undertaking for Imagineering. At D23 2022, Imagineer showcased new models that highlighted the upcoming improvements to Toontown and their new mission statement, which aim to create a land where every child can play, regardless of how that child experiences the world. To commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company in January of 2023, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway was finally unveiled in Toontown. Construction delays caused by unseasonable wet weather in Southern California meant the rest of Toontown couldn't open until a few months later. The delayed opening of Toontown was not uncommon, as Roger Rabbit Cartoon Spin was not yet ready for the soft previews when Toontown first opened its doors in 1992, showing that staggered rollouts were not new to the land's history. The state-of-the-art attraction featuring trackless ride vehicles perfectly fits in the animated world of Toontown. The fully immersive ride queue allows fans to walk through a complete exhibit of all the real props used in Mickey Mouse's celebrated entertainment career, which is a unique feature in the Disneyland version of the attraction. Despite taking over 65 years for Mickey Mouse to get an attraction at Disneyland, the final product was well worth the wait for the El Capitan Theater to finally show up along with Mickey Mouse and all of his pals. By March of 2023, the reimagined and inclusive Toontown would open its doors to children of all needs, a first in Disneyland's history. Upon entering the newly transformed land, guests will immediately notice significant changes made to nearly every corner of Toontown. The steep stairs, tight corridors, and narrow slide of Chip 'n Dale's treehouse were gone, replaced with a picnic area. The neighboring unhealthy ball pit was also removed, and in its place, guests could find a shaded seated area. The water surrounding Donald Duck's boat and the interior playhouse for children to climb inside were removed and blocked off, but a new splash pad, play areas, and activities were added all around it. The interactive fountain that used to be in front of Mickey and Minnie's house has been replaced with a grassy field, and the Jolly Trolley, which had been broken for a long time, had been finally removed. The rail trail it once traveled is now a walking path. The Gag Factory is now just a decorative gag on the side of a building, and bouncing inside of Goofy's house is no longer an option, but instead a state-of-the-art imaginative play space has been created. The citizens of Toontown now have an exciting and enjoyable premier Disney attraction suitable for all ages, where Mickey and Minnie, along with their friends, attempt to save the day while navigating a runaway railway. A splash zone with an interactive fountain, and multiple playgrounds with equipment tailored to suit children of varying abilities. And new establishments like Daisy's Cafe and Good Boy Grocers and Engine Ear Souvenirs have opened up in Toontown. Toontown has undergone several changes since its opening in 1993, including the removal of various marketing strategies that were once used to promote the land. The days of a 20-city mall tour as a way to generate free TV, radio, and newspaper coverage are long gone. And so are the days of producing a live concert and an afternoon TV show to promote Toontown inside of Disneyland are also gone. Just as the outdated elements of Toontown have been removed, so too has this form of media. And as the new and inclusive Toontown now represents a different era with varied requirements, so do the guests who visit on opening day, comprising of bloggers, vloggers, live streamers, Instagrammers, TikTokers, and everyday individuals sharing their experiences of being at Toontown's grand opening through their favorite flavor of social media. The reimagined version of Toontown embodies a society where everyone has their own media platform to showcase their experiences. And with that, Disney no longer needs to allocate a budget for marketing. All they have to do is keep creating new and exciting attractions, and the guests themselves will do all the promotion. But who knows? Maybe among this noise, maybe somewhere in this crowded land, is someone who can sit under the new Walt Disney wishing tree and be inspired to dream of the next Disneyland. And for the first time ever, They were not limited by their abilities to get to that spot or anywhere else inside the newly reimagined ToonTown.